Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to explore the second part of power sharing, the first chapter of 10th grade civics CBSE board. We will cover forms of power sharing. Let's begin. For a long time, people believed that all power should be in the hands of one person or one group, like a king or a dictator. The idea was simple. If one person makes all decisions, things will be faster and more efficient. Sounds logical, right? But here's the problem. When only one person or one group holds all the power, others feel ignored, unheard, and often mistreated. That's when people started demanding for a better system. A system where everyone's voice matters. And that's how the idea of democracy came. Now look at this cartoon, Reigning the Reins. This cartoon cleverly critiques the relationship between democracy and power concentration. Putin and Bush are showing driving a car labeled democracy. The reins are being pulled tightly. Bush says, "We gotta keep the rein tight, Vladimir." This implies both leaders are controlling democracy, not letting it move freely. Ironically, they claim to promote democracy while centralizing power in their hands. The cartoon suggests that democracy can be manipulated or controlled by powerful leaders. Even in democratic systems, leaders may tighten control on media, institutions, civil liberties while still using the language of democracy. It's a warning. Just because a country holds elections doesn't mean it's a true democracy. Examples: Pakistan under Pervez Musharraf, Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe. In a democracy, the real power lies with the people. We rule ourselves through institutions of self-government like parliaments, assemblies, local councils, and more. This is why we say people are the source of all political power, because without the people, there's no democracy. So what makes a good democratic government? It's the one that gives respect to diverse groups and opinions. Think about it. A country is full of people with different religions, languages, and cultures. A good government makes sure that everyone has a voice in shaping public policies, not just a few people at the top. That's why, in a democracy, political power should be shared among as many citizens and groups as possible. It's like doing a group project in a class. If one person does everything, others will feel left out. But if everyone shares tasks, the result is better and fairer. So power sharing is not just an idea. It is the heart of democracy. In a democracy, no single person or group can hold all the power. That would be dangerous, right? So to keep everything fair and balanced, power is shared among different parts of the government. Let's look at one of the most common types of power sharing: horizontal distribution of power. Now that might sound complicated, but let me break it down. It means that power is shared among different organs of the government that are at the same level: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now let's see what each of these does. Legislature is the law-making body. In India, for example, this would be the president, parliament, or state assemblies. Executive is part of the government that implements laws. It includes president, prime minister, and the council of ministers. Yes, president is part of both the legislature and the executive. Judiciary are the courts that interpret laws and make sure justice is served, like Supreme Court, High Court, and Session Court. Now they all have different roles, but here's the key: none of them can overpower the others. This system is also known as checks and balances. Why? Because each organ can check the power of the other. For example, ministers may have power, but they are responsible to the legislature. Judges are appointed by the executive, but they can still check the actions of the executive or declare a law made by the legislature as unconstitutional. So no one gets absolute power. Everyone stays in their lane, and if someone steps out of it, the others can pull them back. Now, what do we mean by different levels of government? Let's break it down. At the top, we have a general government for the entire country. In India, we call it the central or union government. They handle things for the whole nation like defense, currency, and foreign policy. Then we have state governments. They take care of what's happening within each state, things like police, healthcare, and education. Here's the key word for this type of power sharing: federal division of power, which means power is shared between the central and the state government. Not all countries have state governments. In countries like Sri Lanka, there's only one central government that makes all the decisions. That's called a unitary system. But in countries like India and Belgium, there are 2 or more levels of government. This is called the federal government. And the constitution clearly says who can do what. That's the cool part. Everything is written down. So no confusion, no fighting over power. So far, we've talked about central government and state government. Central government is for the whole country and state government is for each state or province. But there's more. At the local level, we have municipalities and panchayats. Municipalities are for cities, panchayats are for villages. When we talk about power being divided from the top level to the bottom, from union to state to local government, we call it vertical division of power. It means each level, high or low, has its own set of duties and responsibilities, and none can take over the other's work. Let's say the central government had to solve every little problem, from a broken street light in a village to international trade deals. That would be chaotic, right? So dividing power vertically makes sure that local issues are solved locally, state issues are handled by states, and national issues are tackled by the central government. It makes the system efficient, responsible, and fair to all regions. Third, you already know that power can be shared between the parliament, courts, and ministers, and also between the central and the state government. But what if I told you power can also be shared between different social groups? Think about it. In a country like India or even Belgium, people follow different religions, speak different languages, and belong to different cultures. So shouldn't everyone get a voice in how the country is run? That's exactly what this kind of power sharing is all about, giving equal space to every community. Let's take Belgium as an example. You've already read about Belgium having 3 major communities like Dutch speaking, French speaking, German speaking, and then they created this community government, right? Which took care of things like language, culture, and education for each group, no matter where they lived in the country. In India, we also try to make sure that socially weak sections and women are not left out of power. That's why we have reserved constituencies, that is, special seats in the parliament and state assemblies just for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and in many local elections, even women. Now, this ensures that every group gets representation, not just the ones with more numbers or influence. Imagine a classroom where only a few students get to make all the decisions, others will feel ignored, right? Without proper representation, minority groups can feel left out or unheard. This can lead to frustration and even conflict. So, power sharing with social groups builds trust, promotes equality, and keeps the country united and strong. Fourth, another important type of power sharing is between political parties, pressure group, and people's movement. Let's break it down. First up, political party. In a democracy like India, we don't just have one party ruling forever. That would be dangerous because power in one hand for too long can lead to unfair decisions. That's why we have multiple parties like BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, and many more. Now, these parties compete in elections and people like you and me get to choose who we want to rule. This competition makes sure no single party becomes too powerful, people's voices are always heard, different ideas and social groups get represented. Now, here's something interesting. Sometimes, no single party wins majority seats to form a government on its own. So what happens? Parties come together to form a government. This is called a coalition government. For example, in 1999, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's NDA government formed a coalition with parties like JDU, Shiv Sena, TDP, etc. In 2004, Congress led the UPA coalition, needing support from allies like DMK, NCP, RJD, etc. to stay in power. Manmohan Singh then became the Prime Minister. Now, sometimes they team up much before elections too, where parties agree to contest elections together, often deciding which party contests which seat. Example, United Progressive Alliance led by Congress, National Democratic Alliance led by BJP. Now, there is power sharing in action. It's like forming a group project, you have to work together, even if you have different ideas. But wait, it's not just political parties that share power. There are also pressure groups and movements. What are those? Think of farmers' associations, business groups, trade unions, women's rights groups, environmental activists. These groups may not contest elections, but they still have a lot of influence. They can always join government committees, protest for their demands, talk to politicians and shape laws and policies behind the scenes. So even if they are not in power, they still help decide what happens in the country. Why does this matter in a democracy? Because democracy is about sharing power, not hoarding it. It ensures fairness, encourages healthy debate, and makes sure all voices are heard, not just the loudest one. Political parties, pressure groups, and movements all help distribute power among different social groups and ideologies. The power of a democracy lies in the hands of the people and the groups that represent them. Now let's discuss Khalil's dilemma. In Beirut, Lebanon, Khalil is a young man with political ambitions. His parents belong to different communities. His father is an Orthodox Christian and his mother a Sunni Muslim. After a bitter civil war, Lebanon created a power-sharing system where top political posts are reserved for specific religious communities to maintain peace. But Khalil dislikes this system. He doesn't follow any religion and feels blocked from leadership because of these sect-based rules. He asks, why can't Lebanon be a regular democracy where anyone can contest and the majority wins? Elders who witnessed the civil war says the current system prevents conflict. Now Vetal asks Vikram, if you could rewrite Lebanon's rules, would you keep the old system, switch to a regular democracy, or do something else? Now let's try to answer these questions in the best way possible. Lebanon's power-sharing system helped end a civil war and maintain peace. But fixing top posts by religion feels unfair today. People like Khalil feel excluded. Don't scrap the system entirely, but reform it gradually. They can allow multiple communities to contest for top roles, not just one fixed group. They can ensure minority representation through legal guarantees. They can promote secular politics so people like Khalil aren't forced into sect identities. They can invest in trust building and civic education to reduce sectarian voting. Lebanon needs its own model of inclusive democracy, not a blind copy of others. That is all for today. Stay tuned for other interesting lessons. You will find the notes on your screen next. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.